Hi, I'm Stuart McMillan, Deputy Head of E-Commerce at Schuh.
I'm Adam Gore, Managing Director of Find Me a Gift.
I'm Callie Russell, and I'm CEO and founder of mallzee, which is the UK's biggest multi-retailer shopping app.
Hi, I'm Mark Cody. I'm the product lead for mobile at Eurostar.
Okay, so we'll start with the easy questions first. So guys, what does a great mobile site experience look like? And Stuart, why don't you go first?
I guess anyone here that was in Sarah's talk from Google would see some of the sort of bits and pieces in there, but lots of studies show that it's actually pretty simple, that there's a number of things. It's got to be fast, that products have got to be discoverable. It's got parity with desktop sites in terms of information, that you're not offering a second-class experience. And to be honest, it doesn't really need to be that much more complicated than that. The bells and whistles, consumers never say that they want more features. They just want what you have to work well, I think.
Okay. I definitely agree. Page load speed. It's one of my major passions in the business. I think you've all seen countless graphs of retailers who show you conversion rate as it decays as mobile page speed increases. So for me, if you get a fast site, that's key. Mobile first design is essential. So start with a responsive website and then scale it up for desktop. That's critical, making sure you've got the right size buttons, click points for a finger. I think definitely product offering, making sure you're presenting the right products. That's pretty standard for desktop. And feedback is a big one for me. So we use a tool called Hotjar, which gives an amazing amount of feedback. And it surprises how many customers actually interacted with it. And you can put it on the basket page, the checkout. And we thought that was really insightful. You can just get emoji responses, happy face, sad face, or you can actually ask some proper questions and have free text input fields. So that's really good customer feedback.
Callie?
I think a real clear path to what the user wants to get to. I think for desktop, most people who end up shopping there or kind of interacting there are clearly there to buy. Mobile is often the path, the step before that. So it's that information sort of driven sort of point. So I think when optimizing, you don't just have to be thinking like, how do I get the person to that end sort of purchase point? It can actually be, do you know what, if I think about their wider customer journey, how am I delivering value to them at some point during this?
Anything further?
Yeah, I think lastly, just to add to that as well, I think it's recognising the context. So the fact that people snack on mobiles, so they pick up their phones hundreds of times a day. So typically they're on in a very kind of short burst of time. So it's making things easy to find, easy to navigate. Recognising in most cases they're using thumbs or obviously or fingers to navigate. So making it really simple to get around the site out or the app and do the task that you're looking for them to do.
Okay, so now that we've talked sort of conceptually about it, has anybody got a favourite mobile experience that isn't their own that they like to share with the group, and why?
Well, to bring in travel, I think the train line do a great experience. I must say I'm not a big Eurostar user myself. Being from Scotland, you know, our trains are not quite so continental. But I actually think the train line, it's no secret that I'm not a big fan of native apps. It was great to hear, again, pull back to what Sarah was saying before about progressive web apps. I'm not a big fan of native apps for retailers because I think there's quite a barrier to get them on the consumer's phone. But I think the train line do a great job at really engaging the consumers and providing a lot of added value in there. And I mean, that's a native app, it's not mobile web. But in terms of mobile web, I think Screwfix do a great job. People at work are sick of me talking about my Screwfix experience on a daily and weekly basis because the amount of DIY I'm doing, but the great parity and great experience, and it's not just about the user interface, it's about how their business is engineered around speed. So their click and collect is, they confirm it within a minute. I can be traveling to work, create a click and collect order, it's confirmed while I'm driving to work. They have a store that's just a sort of 5-minute detour from my work. I can pick it up before I head to work, and really it's not taking any time out of my day, and I'm not getting any delivery charges for it.
So, rather than just go down the line again, but because that's a bit unfair. Callie, you've got a business that is an app-based business. quite clearly. So how do you go around approaching the, if you like, the experience for the customer on your side?
So I think there's two things in that. The first question was around, do you know what mobile experiences do I like, kind of out there? And there's lots of different people I think do things really well. I think some of the new Shopify sites in terms of their mobile web pages around that are insanely good. There's a company in Hong Kong that I love their clothes called Everlane, and I think they've got a really great mobile experience because it's not just here's a product, there's like the story around the product and kind of taking me on that snackable content point that you're kind of touching on there. On the other side, what Stuart was starting to hint at, and this is probably the thing that we're going to fight about, because there's some of us on here that are going to say, let's build mobile apps, and there's going to be some people that say, let's not build mobile apps. So if I kick the chair, this glass thing and storm out, don't come after me, it's okay. But thinking on it, that side of things is that the difference between that mobile web page and the mobile app is what is the additional value that you can provide someone by creating that native experience. And that's the big argument I think is really interesting, because as soon as you move from, just the single mobile page to the mobile app side of things, it opens up a world of possibilities in terms of the ways you can communicate with the end consumer. It opens up a world of possibilities in terms of how you can showcase product to them, how you can do things graphically. I think there's some great success stories. We might be one of them, but other people who have made mobile apps and seen huge jumps in revenue just by offering the end consumer something that a little bit different on the other end of it.
Okay, probably one for maybe Mark, is that obviously Eurostar is a travel business, not a fashion retail, which we've heard a lot about today. So what considerations do you think you need to, or have you looked at from the point of view of the mobile as opposed to the website experience?
I think to the previous point, it's very much around context. So we know that most of our travellers make purchases online through the website, but actually we're getting a big majority now using and downloading the app because they can get the tickets, they can add to Apple Wallet, they can all the things that is a little bit harder to do on a website.
Yeah.
But you've got offline experience as well. So when you're on a train that's travelling at 320 kilometres per hour, your mobile signal's probably not going to be very good. So recognising that we can provide an offline experience where you can have the key things that you need en route to enable you to get to the station, get onto the train, etc., provides a very different experience to that than you'd see on a website.
Okay, maybe Adam, you can take this one first, and then we can pass it around. But what do you think the biggest challenges are from a mobile perspective, from a, if you like, a conversion, or from actually just a usage point of view, and how can we get around those?
I think it's definitely 3G, poor page speed again. Obviously, whether 3G then becomes 4 and 5G and page speed becomes less of an issue, that's potential for the future. But I think right now with the 3G as it is, then yeah, I think that's the biggest issue, page speed. Making sure you offer some stripped down functionality on some pages, actually don't give them the choice, because if you give them too much choice, we know that people often don't make a decision at all. So, and also on mobile, if you hide, some of the copy, for example, and just do everything under a click and reveal rather than actually showing everything, I think that's crucial.
I think it's a fair point in the bandwidth, actually. Sorry, just jump in there. And I think it would be great to see the government really push 5G. Obviously, and I guess in many cases they'll leapfrog 4G because it's not universally available. But to see 5G rolled out is would make a massive difference to the consumer's engagement on mobile, to have that connectivity, that bandwidth and lower latency available. So, and I know it's only just gone out to to tender. I think it was just this week or last week. But that would make a massive difference to us as an industry.
Yeah.
Kelly?
I think, for me and kind of looking at it and looking at the industry just now, it's like, yeah, page speed has a huge issue, and 3G, 4G, 5G, but pretty much everywhere you go, like whether it's on I think Eurostar offers Wi-Fi. I'm sure same sort of stage. I think this is becoming less and less of a barrier for the kind of the end consumer. I came up from London this morning. I had Wi-Fi all the way. We're all in here today. It's kind of Wi-Fi all the way at the same sort of stage. I think the thing around this, and one of the big differentiators in this market, is frequency. Like if you are, if you're a product that people are going to buy from once every 3 months, then I think you have to really think of that as part of your mobile strategy, because it's then like, well, what am I going to invest in that gets me the best possible return that's associated to it? If you're a product that people are going to buy from every week or every 2 weeks or every month, then all of a sudden your mobile strategy changed quite dramatically, because you have that little bit more loyalty, you have that little bit more brand interaction, and I think that's really got to connect up.
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. It's all about frequency. I read a stat that 80% of people, 80% of people don't use apps after 3 months, and something like 90% of apps on people's phones just aren't used. And people are just generally hoarders, aren't they? They don't delete apps; they just keep them and build them, and then put them in folders, and then it just becomes more of a barrier to actually finding and using the app that you want.
But then Amazon's, I'm sure we're all using Amazon on a frequent basis.
Who?
Amazon. It's a jungle in South America. But their mobile web experience is superlative in terms of product discoverability, speed, and range and things in there. And I have that, but to be honest, a lot of the times I'm clicking through from Google, bringing up the mobile web, and it's absolutely doing everything I need it to do in that moment, and there isn't.
In that moment, it does. But if you think, I'm a big advocate of, I use the Amazon mobile app a huge amount. And yes, the discoverability is on par, but where it then really sets itself apart is everything that happens after the purchase point. So the customer experience that I then receive, because it's coming up on my phone in terms of the push notification of when my product's been dispatched, when it's going to be delivered. And yes, I could get that in an email, but then there's a level of friction that happens that I have to go into my email, I have to go and look at it, whilst it's just actually just popping up on my screen to tell me this is what...
But if you're on Prime, you know it's going to come tomorrow anyway.
But when's it going to come? That's like, when's it going to come?
Okay, but they send you text messages as well, so you don't necessarily need that app push notification.
But the thing around that is, personally, again, for myself, is that when I get a text message, it says who it comes from, and then I have to open it to engage with it. With a push notification, it literally just says it's on its way. I don't have to look at it. I don't have to unlock my phone. I don't have to do any of those things around it. I think the really interesting thing around this, and again, is if you look at, you're talking about the frequency point as well. If you look at a mobile website versus a mobile app, do you know what? 90% of the stuff is going to be similar. And yes, there's an additional expense, an additional thing around that, but it's just that little bit more that you can give to the consumer, that little bit more friction that you can remove from the process that can get you closer to them and that it can make you kind of stand apart from it.
What's your take on PWAs, Kelly?
Well...
Excuse me, that's my job. Before we get on to that, I think where I was coming from with my original question 10 minutes or so ago was, I'm old enough to remember when mobile apps, etc., and websites started, and the big issue was payments. The big issue was checkout. We've heard stuff today, and no doubt tomorrow, around how that's changed. Have we got to the point where that is not a barrier anymore to mobile shopping?
I think
there's so much choice now. So many websites and apps now offer choice in terms of payment methods. Could always be improved, but ultimately with payment choice and an integrated experience with things like Apple Pay and Amazon and Google Pay and PayPal, etc., customers now have 20 different ways they could pay that they couldn't have paid for yesterday. And when you have that integrated experience that pre-fills all the basket data, actually you don't even think about it anymore. You just tap it and you kind of forget about it. And for me, that's exactly where most brands and retailers should be looking for.
I think it's less of an issue, but it's still definitely an issue for people. They've still got to make a decision whether to pay by credit card, Google Checkout, Android Pay, Apple Pay. So there's still a multitude of selections they have to make. One of the things we try and say is don't make me think. It's like if you try and make the customer think too hard and make decisions, then you've got a friction point that they might abandon because they're getting on a bus or they're getting on a train, whether they've got Wi-Fi or not. That's the point, removing the friction.
I'm a huge advocate of Apple Pay, so I love the idea that I can pay with something just using my face, because I think it just removes the friction from all of that process kind of on the iPhone X. From us as a retailer side of perspective, what's really interesting around that is that actually the additional fraud protections that Google has, that Apple Pay has, because actually anyone to use them has had to go through a bit of more of a fraud process than just had a card. They've had to register it, they've had to go through all of these different areas. That it provides a little bit more protection. So I think it's becoming easier and easier to accept payment on mobile.
I mean, more of a back to basics thing though. These technologies are great, but I think in many, many mobile websites, we're not doing well enough with structuring our forms in a way that are easy to complete. So, you know, we're in the CV2 number field, for example, many people have just got a standard keyboard that comes up and they're not thinking about simple things like text input. It's just such a simple change you can make to your HTML to make the number keyboard come up as opposed to just the standard keyboard, and things like that can reduce user friction so much. And it's just these basics as much as anything that are simple, cheap to do that we're not doing.
And following on from that, I suppose, comes voice. Where are we with voice technology and all of this? Bearing in mind it is a mobile phone after all. Are we anywhere near? I've not seen anything around the voice actually being used to help this process.
Personally, I cannot wait to the day we're all in public transport shouting at our phones together.
Still are.
But, you know, and just all trying to have conversations with our phones, or in an office. I think it works fine at home with a smart device or things like that. But voice it's about the platform. It's about Google doing that. It's basically, voice is just text search that's longer, it's longer tail text search because just the conversational nature of the search, but it's still text search, and it's the platform itself that will do the voice recognition and turn that into text that we all need to be able to cope with.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think once Google have cracked the whole voice thing, a couple of years, then I think people will just be talking into their phones. And it is about the conversation. It's not just about giving your phone a dumb instruction and getting a dumb response. It's the phone interacting with you in an intelligent way and promoting a conversation to help you. Customers just want convenience and they want help, and that's I think where voice will happen.
Okay. Whilst I ask this next question, can I ask the audience to be thinking about any questions that they'd like to, and I'll come around and we'll get some audience participation. It kills me. Right, what other things on the mobile phone? Because we see, location-based advertising, voice, this, that, and the other. What haven't we tapped into properly yet from a mobile application point of view? Do you got any idea on that one, Mark?
That's a good question. I think there's a lot of this is kind of coming back to basics. I think innovation is a great thing, but it can equally be quite dangerous. I think there are so many instances where brands try to lead with the technology or lead with the innovation rather than actually coming up with what's the problem and what's the best way to solve it. So I think I'm not a big fan of just jumping in just for the sake of doing something. I'd rather try and look at the problem in a very pragmatic way and saying what's the best way to resolve it. So I think there's a lot of things that we're doing today that, even with the basic things, as we've already discussed, around simple things like keyboard input, just get those things right first before you start jumping in, looking voice and AI and visual search and those kind of things. Those things no doubt will come, but I think so many brands and so many retailers still haven't got the fundamentals right.
I think one of the really untapped things is mobile as part of your wider sort of business mix. So the talk I went to before this was last minute. Who else is going to see? One of you guys is going to see that, hadn't we? No, someone else I was just speaking to, and we were talking about, basically how last minute are using their site to then target different advertising and all these sorts of things through that, and they've made an unbelievably great revenue stream off the traffic that they're kind of getting and kind of putting through from that. Traditionally, conversion rates on mobile are lower than desktop. It's changing a little bit, but it's still a lot lower. I think there's a lot of argument to be said that actually we need to start thinking about our mobile channel not just as a pure revenue driver, but actually what else does it provide back into the business? Is it providing brand value where it's allowing us to make the customer feel closer to us? Is it providing something else? We do a lot of stuff around data, so we're actually saying our mobile propositions are not always purely based on revenue driving. It's we're generating data which we can then go and do interesting things around, and I think more and more people need to start thinking like that, where we're saying, right, actually, even as a retailer, how do I use these channels doesn't necessarily need to be revenue right here, right now, but it can be revenue in the future if I do X, Y, and Z.
I think the camera, we just touched on visual search there. I think it's easy for us guys to sit here with businesses that have been going for years and say what we think is right, but I think obviously some people in the room might be starting businesses or they might be looking for an angle, and I think if you could adopt a technology and an innovation and really push that and give your customers a unique innovation, then I think that would add value to your marketing, your brand building, and visual search is a good example of that. So it's you take a photograph of a product and then you'll be able to find that product, whatever it is, on the internet. So I think that could be quite powerful.
I guess for me, there's a kind of basics that I don't know. I'll ask the question. Right, how many of you have a website that is fully HTTPS? Right, so quite a lot of hands didn't go up there. If you don't have an HTTPS website or web pages that are potentially want to use geolocation services, then a lot of the modern browsers are not going to let you access like geolocation. You're not going to be able to then even use some of the more basic features in the phone, like where is this phone? So actually one of the things I would say is move to HTTPS, and then you can start to get more access to more features. Google are really giving us a bit of a carrot and stick around this and trying to get all sites HTTPS. So hence changes in Chrome. Apple are a bit the same. You can't really be a PWA until you are HTTPS. So again, sorry to kind of harp on a kind of back to basics thing, but you know, some of these basic site hygienes are essential to being good on mobile.
No, I'd agree with that.
Okay, can we have a question from the floor? Oh, question from the floor. There you go.
Hi there. It's sort of two, but they're connected. My website, I've checked it. I would check it for speed regularly. I know when it's on 3G, it just says fair, and it's 4G, it really works well. What's the percentage of 3G to 4G in this country? Does anybody sort of
I think
know?
that depends on your location, but
Does
yeah.
it?
Is it not something like 85% of the population can now get 4G?
All right, so I'm not going to worry too much about that then. And then the other thing was, I did look, my site's very image heavy because we sell products that rely on photographs of the product from different angles with personalisation, and we do lifestyle. Does that affect the speed?
Yes. Yes, yeah, you probably want a longer answer than that. Yes,
Yeah.
it does, but there are many things you can do to make that, to mitigate against that. So there are features of HTML that will allow you to download the right size image for that, for that particular connection, that screen size and things like that, that you can leverage some of the newer browser features. And the great news is that all the mobile browsers are really, really up to date. We're all updating our mobile phones regularly. It's not like in desktop where you might be stuck in IE 8 or something like that and people aren't upgrading their browsers. That on mobile you are able to leverage a lot of
Right.
modern features. So
okay, so I can
there's
look at
some
some
good
of the
news there.
images and sort of sacrifice.
I think it's called SRC set. If you
Yeah.
look up that.
SRC set.
Yeah, it's a
Set,
picture element.
Yeah, that enables the browser to choose the right image for the device that the browser is being used on.
And that also
Thank you.
takes connection speed into account. So if you can then, you can in some cases specify things like a double density image. The browser will then say, I'm on a fast connection, I can handle a much
Right.
heavier
Oh,
image
so
size.
So
So
it's
you can,
responsive.
yeah, and you can have your cake and eat it in this, and supply for a poor connection really quite a smaller image that still gives the user experience.
Right, thank you.
Thousands of pounds of free consultancy there.
So
Okay.
On the native app versus PWA debate again, sorry. Speaking as somebody who's all in favour of PWAs, there seems to be a trend where the native APIs are becoming available through standard JavaScript APIs that are then becoming available through the browser. Whilst native apps, whilst PWAs are not yet on feature parity with PWAs, they're definitely heading that way. It would seem to be a trend. Why then would I want to consider building 3 native applications for 3 different platforms rather than a PWA that does it all?
it's a great rhetorical question. To give an example, just to say there, so there's an API called Get User Media, which allows in the modern browsers to access the camera through the browser and through JavaScript. And I know there are people now who can do barcode scanning, offer you barcode scanning natively in the browser, as opposed to going through an app. And so, one of the main arguments for an app within retailers has been able to scan products. Now that is now available to you within the browser. So, the barriers are changing, are coming down all the time in that. But Callie, you're an app guy, so here's your opportunity.
It's our
Why
continual
an
fight.
app? Go for the app. Why?
Continual fight. So, for what I would say for this, for the vast majority of people, I probably agree that you don't need to go and build an app. Okay, if you are a relatively small retailer, it's a relatively small brand, and you do not have the resources to then go and properly promote it, because the App Store is a big and scary place, and you've got to figure out how do you do App Store optimization, how do you drive traffic to it, and it is going to be different. But on the other side of that, Stuart's really happy because I'm kind of agreeing with him slightly at this point in time. But on the other side of that, what I would say is our very first app on the App Store was not a native app. So we used to use kind of like PhoneGap and these sorts of technologies to allow ourselves to do it. From moving from a PhoneGap, so a non-native sort of approach, to then being native, we more than trebled our in-app time. So even though, yes, like by rights, there's not a huge difference within the parties within that, and we were featured really heavily by some of the progressive web app stuff before. I'm not a developer, so I'm not going to go into it in huge amounts of depth. The experience we're able to create, just on the very small things, like mobile is all about the small things. It's the small interactions, it's the small tweaks, it's the small little bits of experience that you can do for the user that makes the difference against that. So, do you know what? If you have not got a super high frequency and you don't have the marketing budget to have a different a different mobile app strategy, and that you're able to do those things, don't do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't build an app, it's an extra thing to doing it. If you're a bigger retailer or you want to reach a younger audience type has a huge impact in it again. If you're going after a younger audience, people my age are much more likely to download an app than they are to, continuously try to search different websites and everything that goes with that. If that's not the case, then build on the other side of it.
But they might download it, but then they won't look at it again.
But the thing is, so the stat that you gave there was 80% of people will not use an app after 3 months. But that then comes back to the frequency point. If I'm a high frequency product, then they do continuously to come back.
Yeah.
Most websites I might visit now, but then I won't visit them again for 3 months, and then I'll pop back up again. Yeah. So we've got lots of users that use our product every single week. And then we've got some users that you see in January, and I won't see them until July. So they fall into that bucket of a lapsed user, but actually those are some of our most high value shoppers. And the reason that they eventually come back is that there's a push notification that really appeals to them. There's something like that to kind of get them to pull into it. My final point is a bit of a difference between certain different elements is the push notification side of things should not be underestimated. We've all grown up as digital marketers or e-commerce professionals as, email is the most powerful source that we have to reach consumers in many different ways, once they are one of our shoppers. Actually, email pales in comparison to push notifications. Push notifications for us, I think, bring back like 20 times what email does. And it brings back people and puts them directly into the place where they want to be. And it's just so much more powerful. And with all the changes Google are doing to, if you go into Gmail now, you've now got your normal inbox and you've got your filtered inbox. So a lot of the marketing emails that we all send now never get in front of the consumer, whilst, push notifications have a much, much greater chance.
And luckily, you can get push notifications in PWAs now. So,
and it assumes they enable push notifications when they download the app.
Then that's up to you as a developer, you as a company, to make a compelling reason to pull people into you as the product at that point in time.
Okay, guys, we've got another question. Fantastic stuff, yeah. Still all seated on the platform now, which is good. Another question?
Thanks. Yeah, my question's about personalisation on mobile. What are the challenges that you've faced on your sites, and how have you overcome them because of the small space and so on?
Sounds like you.
Mark, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, I think personalisation, there's so many flavours of it, so you can go really simple in terms of keeping it very lightweight. But I think ultimately the more data you've got around your customers, the more richer experience you can create for them. But I think, and as I'm sure we'll probably discuss a bit later on, when it comes to advertising, personalisation and location type advertising can be quite creepy if you kind of get it wrong. So I think there's an element of getting the right information to the customer, but ultimately you've got to build trust with them. So there's an expectation that if they've created an account and they've given up a certain amount of information, that you use that to help them and guide them. But if they suddenly see something that they don't think you should know that information, that's where you cross the line. So I think it's very much getting the balance right and just testing it in very small chunks.
Yeah, I'd agree with that completely. One of the things I mentioned earlier is customer feedback. So there seems to be a big drive at the moment in actually asking the customers what they want and then giving them that. So I think personalisation can be tailored to specific offers, for example. So I think it's House of Fraser at the moment. If you join their loyalty point card, they'll ask you what products you want discounted and what sort of offers do you want. Do you want free shipping or do you want discounts off products? So I think that's critical to get that engagement with your customer, get that feedback, and then you can serve up personalisation that they actually want rather than personalisation that's vaguely based on AI and big data that you might not have statistical reliability on and therefore is useless. So I think, ask your customers what they want.
Yeah, we're rubbish at personalisation, so I can't really comment. We're probably losing tens of pounds because of it.
Okay, good admission. Any other questions around? Hold on. Comment?
It's a question for Adam. Is that the Find Me a Gift?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's all right.
With regards to customer feedback, obviously, I presume lots of people who are buying from you are delivering to a different person?
It's about 20%, so it's not a huge amount.
It's not?
No.
Okay. So how do you get the feedback from those customers, the 20% that do?
So when I talk about feedback, I'm sort of talking about actually on website feedback. So when they're actually engaging with you. So it's less about the end, but that still is crucial. We run tests about getting reviews and website reviews, product reviews, and recently we've just taken on a third-party review site because Google seems to be pushing people to have third-party feedback forms. But yeah, I'm really talking about, when customers land on the basket page, if they show 10, 20, 30, 40 seconds of inactivity on the basket page, the little pop-up will come up and say, why, is there an issue with your purchase? Is there anything we can help you with? And at that point, you can give them, not only can you get feedback, but you could also give them a free delivery voucher, for example, within the two-tiered Hotjar feedback form.
Okay, another question?
Hi, this is really about product content, product information. We know shoppers are using the mobile devices in store to look up information as well as purchasing through their mobile device. How do you kind of balance the need to constantly improve and add more product information that customers want with the usability and the speed of page loading?
We did some consumer research and customers said they wanted to go into our stores and find out how much stock they had because they found at busy times it was difficult to, if a member of staff was busy, they wanted to be able to say, is my size in stock? And we created this little mini site that allowed them to surface that information and nobody used it. It literally, consumers told us one thing, but actually in observation, they didn't actually use it. And it could have been a much better user experience. It was all right. It was the best we could kind of do in the time. It would have been better with barcode scanning if we could access the barcode scanner at that time. And perhaps that was the major barrier to it. But even just getting people into the little microsite where you did it, and we did it, surfaced it through the Wi-Fi and everything like that. So I would say buyer beware. Just because consumers would seem to want something doesn't necessarily, I guess, mean that they will actually engage with it. Most of our experience is in store is about providing our store staff with really, really quick information. They all carry it's basically an iPod Touch and a lanyard around them, being able to surface our product information, stock information very, very quickly to a member of staff. But I guess it's different if you're a shoe shop. All your inventory sits at the back of the house. You need to be able to get at that inventory, and it's not like you can just go a clothing rail in a clothing store and be able to, the stock's right there, and actually the information you might want is not necessarily about inventory and is your size in stock. It might be other information, but to our consumers the most important information is my size 6 available? Do you have this? Because we only have like one shoe out in the shop and it doesn't say what other sizes are available. So for us personally, it's making that sort of information available, and it's not necessarily in the consumer's own device.
Just leading on from that, which is a great question in terms of in store. So if you forget who you work for and who you represent, but just pretend to be a customer. So we've heard today from the likes of John Lewis, yourselves now, where they've sort of given their store staff the phones or devices in order that they can do that sort of thing that you just mentioned there. As a customer, would you want to have that power without, as you walked into a shop, or are you always going to be reliant on the store staff doing that?
I think it very much depends on the type of store. I think there's a lot to be said for empowering the customer. You pretty much every retailer you go into, you've got customers walking around browsing on their phones. They're either looking for more product information, they're looking for not looking to save and find it cheaper elsewhere. So they could be looking at your app or your site, but equally they could be going to other places. So I think there's definitely something for empowerment for that data. So if you're in a particular shoe shop, but the one down the road, or one train stop down had it, then actually you can make that decision on your own. And a lot of retailers will always suffer from not having enough people on the front line to serve those customers. So there's definitely a balance in terms of giving that information out to your customers versus having enough people to actually give that information out to the customer as well.
I think for me, it feels like a dirty secret when I'm in store and I'm price comparing, and you see people sort of hiding their phones inside their coat. So for me, I think you have to give it the customer, and I also think some customers like to engage with staff, other customers don't. So I think then you definitely need to give it the customer, because they don't want to talk to the staff, they just want to do it themselves.
I think it depends on the experience. Like, if you're a retailer are selling an experience to go into and purchase, like a John Lewis, like you're buying the experience, then you want to give them all information that you could possibly get. But if you are on the other side and you're competing purely on price, then you can see what's happened to Maplin, where they can't compete on price with Amazon, so people go in the stores, find what they want, they get that sort of thing, and then they go buy it. There's no differentiation. I think as brands or retailers that we have to think about that. So, if we're sitting there saying that I am selling the exact same Adidas product that someone can go online and get for cheaper, I've got to think about why does that person buy here today? Because they could get it delivered to their house tomorrow. And it's like finding the reasons behind that and finding the argument to do that at that point in time. And if you can make that argument, if you can make that case and you can build the business case around that, then actually you should be giving them as much information as you possibly can, because people will buy into it.
I guess 2 reflections from me, and I'm not thinking as a consumer because I'm not a typical consumer, but in terms of shoe, 2 points that that human element in stores is actually really important to us. We're not in a needs business, we're in a wants business. Nobody is going to buy their 50th pairs of shoes just because there are 49 pairs are too tatty. They're going because they want to buy shoes, they want to enjoy the fashion, it's the latest trainers and things like that. In a wants business, that element of human persuasion is really, really important, and talking to the member of staff might be wearing the footwear if it's something hot. Our store conversion rate is about 3 times that what it is online. Our online conversion rate's not bad, but it's just that human persuasion, and they can take it over the line a lot better. But in terms of the mobile experience, for me, it's about that mobile store experience before they get to the store. So an increasing amount of our business is done through various click and collect services, where consumers can reserve product up front, or indeed, of course, buy product up front. And that is confirmed within 20 minutes, the stock is there. It's not like Screwfix where everything sits the back of house and nobody's going to be have just tried a box of screws. For us, they may have tried on a pair of shoes and they might have got a bit of distress, so we need to check the quality before we say, yeah, you can have them. But that experience is increasingly important to our business, and we look at how we merchandise our stores, what stock we've got available, our stock accuracy. I mean, our store stock takes are so important. They're a real KPI for our business. I heard about a stock take that happened just recently where there were 0 adjustments to their book stock, and that inventory control is vital. And it's not something we think about. We think about the user interface, but actually something like stock accuracy is really important.
I suppose where I'm coming from on it is that if I was shopping, not that I do it very often, I'd like to be able to go into a store and tell the store staff that they've got a size 7 shoe in the behind, rather than wait for the store staff and ask them the question. You've still got the experience.
And that's where reservations and click and collect come in.
Okay, we're running short of time, so has anybody got one final question, or do you want me to? One little final question. Go for it.
Hi. In terms of you mentioned about stock adjustments being 0. Was that purely because of the pause that you had, or you were actually running? Or?
No, I mean, it's nothing to do with technology. It's about the people, because it's not that difficult to count a number of pairs of shoes in and out. It's about having the processes, about KPIing the store managers and the store staff. But bear in mind, all the footwear is back of house. It's not like people can just walk off with the right, 1 foot, because that's all that's on display. There's not much point in that. So we have some advantages being a footwear store, but it is about the retail hygienes, and that's kind of what makes us as a business, is these retail hygienes that we can then leverage in other areas. Okay,
can I just quickly, as the last minute, just whiz along the panel and just say, just give us a prediction. What's your 10-second prediction on where mobile experience is heading, and then we can come back next year and see if you were right.
I imagine there've been a number of people like to say it's all about AR and VR, but I think ultimately it's about just making it a bit more joined up between the physical and the digital.
Okay, Callie?
I kind of agree with that. I think more and more people will think of mobile as part of their whole experience. So like, how do I put this in and around it? I hope more and more people will think of mobile not just as a pure revenue driver, but as part of their funnel, whether that is getting the person to purchase along the way. It sounds like that's what Schuh does. Or actually, how is it benefiting my wider business? Is it a data generator? What is it helping me do?
For me, I think it's conversational search. I don't think it'll happen next year, but maybe the year after.
Well, we'll tape it this year, and then we can play it each year. In 1 year,
as soon as Google gets their acts together.
Okay.
PWAs.
Oh.
Surprise.
Altogether.
That's fair enough. It's coming. Okay, guys. Thanks to you all. If you can give a round of applause to our panel.